Everything is personal right here. Everything is personal right here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Everything is Personal. And today, our guest is Susanna Rose Stokes. How you doing?
I am wonderful. It is a lot of energy this week, as we were just talking about. So I am coming in hot.
Great. And as I said, I can use some of that energy. So I'm already feeling it. It's a great exchange of energy. Oh, I have a question about something I read or something you said about, and we'll get into Metamorphosis ventures in more detail, but I like this quote or statement that you have about, how does it go? You come for the ceremony and you stay for the community. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did. Yes, sir.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. A lot of people are seeking peak experiences right now. And I would say one of the main reasons why they're doing that is because we are looking for an escape. And that was me at first as well. I was looking for an escape. That's why I came to plant medicine, which I didn't even know there was such a thing as ceremonial plant medicine. But people are now understanding that there is such a thing as a plant medicine ceremony. And what they don't fully comprehend yet until they get there is that the reason why we actually want to come there and why we're drawn there is because we're deeply searching for connection. And we are looking for our tribe. We're looking for our soul family. And that's one of the main reasons why Metamorphosis exists.
So there was a documentary on Aaron Rodgers not that long ago on Netflix. And I don't know if you saw it or not, but
bits and pieces. But yes,
they filmed, his journey and his connection, and there was so much negative feedback on this, and I was trying to figure out why. And I think that, and I don't know Aaron Rodgers. I don't know anything about him except for what I, hear in the news or doing the documentary. But it feels like what you're saying is on point because it feels like he is a seeker. He's searching. Yes, he wants to win. And yes, he's a professional athlete. He's one of the greatest and the Hall of Famer and all that stuff. But there's an emptiness. Like you can kind of feel that. And I was wondering through his journey, because he's building this connection, do you see people are coming to really have some of these journeys because, and as you said, they're looking for a peak experience to feel. Maybe they're just numb and trying to figure out how they can feel again.
Oh, Len, you couldn't have described this better. One of the main aspects of loneliness and isolation is numbness. And so many of these athletes, of these high performers, these individuals are often the folks who have mastered something and they have gone really far and really deep into becoming a master or an expert in something. And that usually makes them highly sensitive in some ways. But often you numb yourself. And I can say this from the perspective of someone who has been in the military. I developed a deep expertise in war. But that numbed me in all of these other ways and then caused me to feel deeply disconnected from the world around me. And then I started to notice over time, I started to notice how numb I was. And I was just craving feeling again. And then, of course, we can get into an even deeper conversation around pharmaceuticals and all of the other things that we are piling on to increase that numbness in our system. So we're just looking for deep connection and feeling.
So I'm glad you brought that up because you're a high achiever, so many different things, gymnast, racing, military. So before we get into it, because I want to build this up from your origin story as well. And then we can talk about, what you got out of this journey and then how you're able to give back. So first, where did you grow up?
Yes. Yes. The high achiever, Susanna, who once was, and now I'm in this process of like unbecoming, right? I'm like, how do I just humble myself every day? But the first um, place where I found that drive was on our blueberry farm in Georgia. So I grew up on an organic blueberry farm. That was where I found, first of all, my connection to nature and what I would say is like my version of divine. And then my father encouraged me into the military as a means of developing my leadership skills and becoming even more disciplined. So that's that path from Georgia into the military and then to the Naval Academy.
So was it? Did you come from a military family? Was your father in the
He
military?
was he was in for a short time though. He was in as an attorney in the Marine Corps, so what they call the JAG Corps,
Yeah.
and that was during Vietnam. And really, for him, it was sort of a choice that he felt he had to make because it was either you get drafted and become, infantry in the army, or you get to choose and you choose, one of the other forces in a different way. And so he decided to choose his path. And the way he chose was to go to law school and then join the Marine Corps as an officer.
So let's talk about young Susanna. Your parents, or were they together, and do you have siblings? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
growing up on a farm, and like what what were your interests? Were you
Mm,
into sports? Were you into school?
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Little Lizanna was known as the general in our house because I was very much like a parentified child and I kind of took on that older sibling role in a very strong way. And then I found my freedom outside. So, little Susanna was very free, kind of frolicking in the fields of Georgia, but also working really hard because anytime you have a farm or lots of land, there's always work to be done. And then I would sort of care for my siblings when my parents were working. Both of them are attorneys, so you could say the farm was kind of like a hobby farm in a lot of ways, but it was still 50 acres. So a hobby farm, it turns into, your other job. And so I spent a lot of time with my siblings. I spent a lot of time then also as a gymnast. I was a competitive gymnast until I was about 15 years old, and that was really my life. And then school. School was a huge portion of what I was focusing my energy on because I had all of these visions and goals of what I was going to be, quote, achieving in my life. So I was busy. Let's say that. I was always busy. I was never stopping. But in the sort of, hippie parts of Susanna, after I started to find yoga and things like that, I was a barefoot farm girl that would just eat. I ate every leaf on our farm just to taste it, just to experience it, become part of nature. So, and I often say I was raised by dogs because with two working parents, I was left on my own quite a bit, and I spent a lot of time with our animals, and that was very healing for me.
So in these goals that you wanted to achieve, were they like, I want to go to the Olympics, I want to be a a competitive gymnast, I want to be on the Wheaties box, or what were some of these goals that you had set up for yourself and school as well? Because both of your parents are professionals, and you're going to school for that, so they left you sort of a little bit of a breadcrumb trail to follow as well.
Definitely, definitely. Oh yes, the family culture is strong with us. Both my parents are still together today, and so they and their family lines, like the bloodlines I come from, are very strong. Um, yeah, I would say that I very quickly realized that I didn't want to make gymnastics my goal. It was something that I did, and I knew that it was had sort of like a an ending at some point. And I just didn't know when that ending was going to be. But I chose, after I started to see some of the younger women surpass me in talent, I was like, I'm really good at this. I enjoy it. And also, I'm not Olympic quality. Like, this is not my, pinnacle of what I'm supposed to do. So I knew that that wasn't going to be my goal. And there were a lot of people who would ask me that question because I looked and I walked and I talked like a gymnast. I mean, I was like muscle woman. And I said, if I wanted to go to the Olympics, I'd be in Texas training with Bella Caroli. Like, that's not what I'm doing. And part of that was because at 4 years old, I watched my older brother graduate from Paris Island. And he's my older half brother. So he was significantly older, 14 years older. So he was already kind of out of the family by the time I became, like older sibling to my two younger siblings. And that moment of his graduation, I watched the women march across and I looked at my dad and I said, I could do that. I could be one of those. And he was like, yeah, you absolutely could. Like, you can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah.
So, and he's always been a really strong champion for my growth in that way. And that planted the seed. And what then grew was then I was about 12 years old when I learned about the Naval Academy. So my sights, my goals were always set on, okay, I'm going to go to the Naval Academy, which was also an academic goal in a lot of ways. And I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get into the Naval Academy, not only because it was the feeder for the Marine Corps, because the Naval Academy serves both the Navy and the Marine Corps. It also was a free education. And although my parents could have potentially supported me in some of my college endeavors, it never hurts to have a free college education.
Sure. Yeah, I
So,
know. I hear
yeah.
you on that. I
Oh,
paid for
yeah.
my daughter's
Ooh.
education at Berkeley, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah, it's pricey these days.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ease the burden on my family as much as possible. And so that was where I was headed. And then I knew after that I wanted to go into the Marine Corps and become an officer. I didn't really know what job I wanted to do. I just knew that. And I knew, yeah, I think I actually didn't even have visions of being in a relationship or anything like that. It was much more around career, and leadership for me.
So why the Marine Corps? You're in the Naval Academy, you know,
Yeah.
you have choices. And then from there, officer, like
Hmm.
why that trajectory?
Hmm. Why that particular trajectory?
Yeah.
Well, I got the benefit of being able to see both my father's experience from the Marine Corps. Granted, his was back in the late 60s, so long time ago. And then my older brother's experience, and my older brother chose to enlist because he chose to go before college. And I mean, he told me point blank several times, he was like, do not enlist ever.
So you do the opposite.
Don't do it. And I was like, okay. So I had some guidance and some understanding of these two different perspectives. And one was from the enlisted Marine Corps perspective, one was from the officer. And granted, the officer was also a lawyer. So for those who know the military, a lawyer in the military or a doctor in the military, very different from what, and this is something I learned, the narrator says, it's not what she thought it was going to be.
Never is.
And never is, it never is. So, so I got some guidance there. And then the other reason for the Naval Academy was, yeah, I think I wanted to explore the option of Navy. Like I even applied to at least two of the three military academies, if not all of them. And I looked into the other options. But one of the things is, when you come from a family that has a Marine in it,
Uh,
it's really hard to do any other service. The energy, they have the mantra, once a Marine, always a Marine. And the level of kind of programming and sometimes brainwashing that goes into forging a Marine is so potent, and the culture is so deep and so rooted in that person that it really does kind of spread through the whole family system. So I find that there are rarely families that I see where you have a Marine parent and then the child is doing something else, unless the parent has specifically said, don't join the Marine Corps, because the Marine Corps is such a powerful culture.
Yeah, it makes sense. I thought maybe you're looking at special forces like SEAL versus Marines, but
Well, this is interesting, Len. I appreciate that. I take that as a compliment
yeah, for
because
sure.
as I, if I was not a woman, that is definitely what I would have explored. But being a woman, I was not allowed into those communities. But I definitely would have explored. There is EOD is open to women, explosive ordnance disposal. But one of the big challenges with those is that you really have to be an incredibly strong swimmer to make it through a lot of the trainings. And I'm a good swimmer. I can swim. I can swim decent distances, but I am not like that level of great swimmer. Yeah.
So talk to me about this. So you're an officer, you're in the Marine Corps, you get out all your life, and it seems to me that there was this physically rigorous roles. There was a lot of physicality, and even running around the farm. And but how did this relationship, physical and then semantic healing, like how did it sort of come together where you made a realization or you had a realization that I've been focusing on my body, I've been focusing on me, I've been focusing on my leadership skills, but what about me inside healing semantic as a human being, and what we were talking about, that connection? When did you come to that realization?
I love this question. This is a beautiful way of describing kind of coming out of just the material, right? And like the physical somatic world into the soma and then the connection into spirit. Yeah, this is really powerful. I think a lot of this actually had to do with sexual assault. That was sort of the catalyst for this awakening for me. And the reason why is because I was asked to become a victim advocate for survivors of sexual assault, what they call a uniform victim advocate. So in the military, they have these representatives, and anybody who has experienced a sexual assault will come to that person and report it. And then they have an option to keep it sort of secret or confidential if they like. And so I received many different cases and worked, advocated for many different people. But even more so, I did a lot of training, and I offered sort of the annual training that the military required. So I talked about sex with a lot of people, which was very interesting to do in a male-dominated world. And what I ultimately came to was I had experienced my own military sexual trauma that was a result of mostly being in environments where there was a lot of alcohol, and had some very scary experiences with the men in some of my units assaulting me physically. And even more so, there was a lot of psychological assault. I would say there was just a lot of like sort of projecting that sexual desire onto me. And over time, as I not only as that happened, but also then I began to get quite sick in my sacral. So I had 2 kidney stones. Then at some point, I had a whole year's worth of UTIs. I was like, my whole sacral system started to just be on fire. I was like, my womb was a mess. And I realized that there was something more going on. I was like, this is like an autoimmune kind of chronic condition that doesn't have a reason, right? And so there's no one reason why I'm feeling this pain in here. So there's got to be something more. And that's what led me into, and simultaneously, I'd been doing yoga since I was about 12 years old. So I'd started to understand some of the concepts between the connection between the mind and the body, and the body and the breath, right? And then the spirit and the breath. And I started to understand like, maybe there was actually emotions that are stored. Maybe that trauma was living in my body in a different way. And that's what really led me, that level of pain. And simultaneously, I was watching my sister go through a process where she was attempting to take her own life. And she had suffered a sexual assault, which we found out later. And all of that, her experience and my experience happening around the same time. And then I found plant medicine, all of that just woke me up to the realization that there's so much more than just this physical body.
I mean, thank you for sharing that. You know, I've been going through this thing lately where there have been several people around me that I knew directly, and some of them I knew peripherally. Not. I mean, we met personally, but we're not. That been took their own lives recently, and I lost a lot of people growing up, but this is a recent phenomenon, and I was trying to figure out earlier, and I want to talk about your first experience with plant medicine. But I've been so when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. They put me on prescription medication, and I took cannabis was my medicine. So I got rid of all that stuff. Nobody really got me at that point. They didn't really understand, or like he's doing drugs, but it's medicine for me, and it's always been. And going through these experiences in life, it's still a struggle, but you're actually using, other things to be able to help expand your mind and get more connected with yourself. And I was thinking, during COVID, for instance, people have this isolation and we crave community. So I was always concerned about coming out of the other side of that. How is it going to affect, not everybody has the same mental strength. Not everybody has, but you're now sitting and dealing with yourself and your own shadow and demon, whatever that is, coming out of that. There's like a domino effect. And I've seen that. And I have a good friend of mine who's a SEAL. And he said, after they got some of the men out of Afghanistan during COVID, there was like 13 of them that committed suicide. And it's the camaraderie, like, this firsthand. When you're missing that, yes, people are like, I have PTSD because I experienced this. But I think the other thing that people are missing is that camaraderie when it's no longer there and you're isolating and school and all that stuff. How do you sort of restore this community and ritual and connection with people through plant medicine? But in addition to plant medicine, how do you bring this together so people can have a glimmer of hope and some light in darkness that they're going through? Because the darkness is inside, no matter what's going on in the world. It doesn't matter. So I just want to get your kind of thoughts on that.
Oh, that is so deep. And I just want to acknowledge, yeah, the souls and the beings that have been around you that have passed on and chosen to be in this other realm now, and the deep sadness and grief that comes with when people tap out, right? Like when they're like, I can't do it. And we notice it. Like we're starting finally, after it takes like what they say 22 veterans a day. Like, and that's just veterans. That's not everybody who's tapping out right now. We're finally noticing and going, oh, hey, like something is not right. People don't want to stay alive. Not okay, right? That's not the world we want to build. I, yeah, I think that a lot of our work is around purpose. And we attract and magnetize people together into spaces so that they can feel deeply purposeful with one another, so that they know that their presence is precious and that we deeply need them there. They are special. And that has been an ongoing journey of my own, of like, I want to feel special. I want to feel unique. I want to feel wanted. And I figured, well, if I want that, doesn't everybody else? Doesn't everyone want to feel like they're chosen, you know?
I wanted to ask you about your first journey in
Mm-hmm.
plant medicine and what
Mm-hmm.
that did. And I wanted to preface what you're saying because I want to separate these two things about being wanted, and because you know some people go through life and they feel that their parents didn't give them the love, so they're chasing
Yeah.
desirability
Yeah.
versus acceptance. So they're going about it the wrong way. And I see this with women all the time. I have a 20-year-old daughter, almost 21, and I'm always
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to watch and see, because this notion of feeling desired is not the same as let me feel loved, kind of
That's
thing,
right.
because
Very
because
different.
that gets you in a lot of it creates a lot of issues for
Yeah,
women,
well, because
especially.
it's a grasping from the outside, right? And what you were just speaking about is like the darkness is inside and the loneliness is inside. Yeah, I think to answer that particular piece, or to respond to it, this is all an inside job. And really, it is about the integration and the acceptance of all of the parts and the sides of us, which means we need to have the courage to be able to see the dark parts and the parts that normally society would say you should be ashamed of that, right? That we have a lot of social norms that say that's gross, that's disgusting, that's not okay. We're going to isolate you, we're going to ostracize you. But really, that's just a representation of our collective unconscious that says I don't want to see that. And war is a perfect example of that. That's why so many people come back from war and society doesn't want to really talk about it with them. They don't really want to come around and like hold them in that process because we don't want to know that our boys, our 18-year-old boys are over there killing in some ways innocent people. We don't want that. So we avoid it as a society and we push it down and we suppress it, right? So in our society, in our community, at Metamorphosis, the aim is to allow everything to be seen. And if you can be in a space that's not just safe, like safety is one thing, safety is like a foundational thing, but curious enough and creative enough and open enough that says, bring it. And not only are we going to not judge you, we're going to be curious about what's going on because actually every part of your shadow is your power. Whatever you've experienced, whatever shame you've experienced, whatever anger, whatever murder, whatever it is, whatever frequency of thing, death, all these like darker things that our society doesn't want to talk about, these are actually the avenues and the portals to your unique purpose and your preciousness.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna ask the question I try to ask several times.
Yeah, yeah,
Tell
yeah,
me
do it again.
your first experience with plant medicine. First of all, how did you discover this as an option for you? What were you going through at the moment where you already explained you had some physical conditions, but there's a sort of a tipping point, right? You're trying to discover something's going on. It's autoimmune. This is an option. How do I learn of this option and how do I take this option? Because a lot of people know, and that's the whole point of creating, what you're doing with Metamorphosis as well. So people now have that option. But what was available to you at the time?
Yeah, I took the recreational route at the beginning, which is interestingly not the route I usually recommend now. I'm like, maybe don't do that. But I also, people are going to do what they're going to do, right? You're going to get introduced to these medicines, however you get introduced to them. And I trust the energy and the universe to pave that path for you. For me, I started with MDMA, which I don't consider to be a plant medicine. It is definitely a psychoactive medicine, and I wouldn't even call it a psychedelic, but it is a deeply powerful, heart opening medicine that is synthetic and helps us to at least get to more of the truth of who we are and to shed away some of the layers of the masking that we've put on ourselves, which actually makes you feel more lonely, when you're all masked up and you're in your little like, oh, I think I'm a warrior. Oh, I think I'm a Marine. Oh, I think I'm this. I'm going to label myself this. You actually can't really find your people. You can't find your humans because you're looking in the wrong places. So MDMA helped me unmask a little. And then because I trusted MDMA and I was like, okay, I can go into altered states of consciousness. Now I understand a little bit of this environment, right? And mind you, this is coming from like the straight edge, going to church on Sundays, little barefoot farm girl who didn't try a single thing other than alcohol until I was about 27 years old. I mean, I was so straight edge. You couldn't even believe it. So then I tried LSD. And of course, I had all the fears about LSD, like, oh, it's going to bond to your DNA. It's going to make you jump off of a roof. All that narrative and all of that social programming was in my mind. And after a few experiences, more recreational experiences with LSD, I had a journey with LSD where I was just 2 weeks after a ceremonial journey with a medicine called Bufo, which is 5-MeO-DMT. It's the toad medicine that is a very opening, very consciousness expanding medicine and was quite intense for me. But after that, I did a recreational journey with LSD, and I was meditating on like a hilltop in California. And I experienced a vortex of energy that blew my entire physical being apart, and I became one with all things. And I got a download of information that showed me where my bloodlines all went back to and all of the perfect partnerships and connections and beings that made me, and all of the things that went into me to make me exactly who I am and to make me quite perfect for the purpose that I'm here to do, which is to be in healing and spiritual activation.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'll tell you, I've never done Bufo, but I've done DMT, and holy shit, what an intense experience. And I've done a lot
Intense.
of things, but man, that is intense. I'm grateful that it didn't
Yeah.
last more than like 15 minutes every time I did it. So I did it more
Yeah.
than once, but so I keep going back to the well. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
It's a beautiful medicine. I have my relationship with it is always friction. There's a lot of friction there because it's so masculine, so like consciousness expanding so quickly. For me, I like more of a wavy journey out into consciousness, but it's so effective at helping us to remember that we're spirits, that we are not just a human, like you're just not this physical being, you're so much more than that. And for that realization, I am deeply grateful to DMT.
So when you received these downloads, or this
Mm.
download, and you made a decision that you're here for more, what led you to um, create Metamorphosis and how that came about? And then what is the process? Like, what do people do and what do they get? And is it Bufo? Is it psilocybin? Is it like, what is the process so people understand?
Yeah, I mean, when we had our first retreat, it was in 2021. So it was like early 2021. We're talking kind of middle of COVID here, right? So people have been indoors in their worlds for a year before they come to us. And oh boy, that created quite a vortex. It was a big one. And after that retreat, people who attended were like, well, you obviously have to do this again. Like, this can't be the end because there's so much preciousness here. And we realize that. So, at first, I say like Metamorphosis V1 was 1.0 was a retreat organization. We were running retreats, and it was just like, okay, one retreat to the next. And it was a side hustle. I was doing it, on the side. And then slowly but surely, I realized like, well, I can't do retreats forever. It can't just be me running retreats. I want this to be bigger, and it wanted to be bigger as well. So we created an initiation program that has a year's worth of curriculum to attune facilitators. And so that's one of the ways that people could engage. And then we also had separate courses and programs that were built on microdosing that allow people to engage with the medicine in micro form.
Mm.
And what has quite recently come through is, I call that Metamorphosis 2.0. Now we're at Metamorphosis 3.0. She's Metamorphosis, so she's changing fast. And this evolution of her is to realize that that initiation program is actually an incubator for businesses
Mm.
and for New Earth, for businesses of entrepreneurs who want to build a new Earth and who want to change something in the world and to align their purpose with whatever they're doing. And we know this because there's so many entrepreneurs, leaders, change makers out there who are doing incredible things, but they are numb to it. Just like we talked about at the beginning of this, right? They are, they don't they don't feel anything passionate about what they're working on because they're like a cog in the machine in some big corporation, for example, or they've built a product that their heart is not in and they don't actually care. So we want those individuals, and we've already worked with a cohort of those individuals to basically bring them through a 12 to 15 month program where you can launch and birth your business into the world. And also in the process of that, you can become attuned as a minister of our faith-based organization, which allows you to serve medicine if you want to do that. If that's part of your business, it could also be just something that you do on the side. You are offering ceremonies to people. But all of that is to say that we have different layers of offerings, right? So people could engage with us just through some of our recorded courses like mindful microdosing. You can learn a little bit more about microdosing if you just want a taste. But then if you want to go deeper, we've got programs. We've also got retreats because we still are a retreat organization. And we have retreats and events. And this year we have one big event that's happening in October called MetaFest, and we'll tell you more about that. But that event is a bringing together of the minds and an opportunity to really understand what are we building as a community? What are we starting to ideate? And what are some of the new ways of operating in business? And then if you want to go really deep, you can join Emergence, which is our business birthing program. And you become the most aligned version of entrepreneur so that your heart and your passion is so deeply in the business that you are creating and birthing in the world that you will literally do anything for it in the same ways that I have with Metamorphosis. And so that's really what we're here to do, is to seed the new economy with purpose-driven entrepreneurs.
So is emergence, does that include microdosing and psychedelic journeys for the entrepreneurs, or
Yeah.
the business owners, so they can expand their mind, connect to source, and have a network of like-minded people with sharing a purpose?
That's it, Len. That is it. Yes. We work with the power of both microdosing and macrodosing. So they'll do group retreats with their cohort to attune and to get also to move through some of the trauma that they're moving through in their own bodies and their own families. And then microdosing to keep that energy alive and to keep their integration going. And then there's a whole curriculum of basically awakening new layers of the body. I call it putting on the Iron Man suit. A lot of people have one arm or one pinky finger in the Iron Man suit, but you don't realize that this body that you're in is, and when your spirit is fully in it, when you're fully embodied in it, you have a whole magical superhuman suit that you have to be able to manifest and create the reality you want to live in. So that's what we want to encourage these entrepreneurs to do, is to put the full Iron Man suit on. But that means that you got to feel all your feelings. You got to stop being numb. You got to stop with all the coping mechanisms. You got to really get down to business and commit yourself in devotion to living a purpose-driven life.
You brought up integration a couple times or a few times. Wanted to see if you can expand on that, because so once again, from personal experience, like we were just talking about DMT, so it was confusing. The first time I took it, it was extremely scary. So, okay, if I don't have anybody to talk to after that, I don't understand the experience. And then the second as well, completely different, great, but still confusing. I don't know. Like, so when people go through this, it's sort of like I try to tell people, you go to a Tony Robbins event, right? So you walk on fire and you do all that stuff and you rah-rah and it's exciting, and then you leave. And how do you maintain that energy when you don't have Tony jumping for 12 hours and yelling or whatever he's doing? So the role of integration, how important is that, and how does that play into somebody's process and journey?
I feel like you're taking the words out of my mouth, especially around your experience with DMT, Len. Like, you and I could have started our own integration group.
Never too late. I'm open.
Yeah, like, help me understand.
Yeah.
I'm still integrating my Bufo experience from 2018. Yes, I also offer this into the collective, whoever is listening to this. Please, DMT facilitators, please do offer more integration for your clients, especially DMT. I mean, all of them, all medicines need it. But DMT is such a confusing and disorienting experience that if you don't walk with your client down the other side of that mountain, you're just going to leave them at the top of Everest, and they're going to try to figure out how to get down. And sometimes it's going to be terrifying, right? They don't understand. And that was my experience as well. So integration. I mean, we talk about this all the time. If you go super high or out into the cosmos and you get these incredible downloads, and like that moment on the mountaintop, right, or on the hilltop, I go, okay, God, thank you for telling me about how precious I am and all these things. But now what? What the hell do I do with this information? And what that looked like was I had to walk myself through my integration process. And this is why I did it first. So then the people who are working with us don't have to do it this way. And I kind of hacked through the jungle with a machete, trying to figure out, okay, what is this download trying to tell me? And what I've noticed is if you do not have discipline, if you do not have a ritualistic practice of coming back and being able to focus and intentionally create time and space for yourself, for your devotional practice to God, to universe, to whatever feels authentic to you, whatever's bigger. If you've been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, if you have these neurodivergent tendencies, the practice of integration is so hard. It's so hard. And also because we've designed our world to be distracted. We've designed our world to create as many distractions to keep you from your purpose, your power, your harmonized inner self, because it does support the exit power structures, right? So you really are a rebel if you choose to integrate your process and choose to really focus your energy in this way. So what we do is we surround you with the environment and the community and the support and the coaching that you need to hold you accountable to that process. Because I am, after all things are said and done, I was still a Marine Corps officer. And I, like a gunnery sergeant, will make sure that you do the things that you said you were going to do. Yeah. Because that is what we need in our world today.
Yeah, now accountability is key, and that's why I think people don't hold. People talk about coaching all the time, and I'm like, everybody's a coach. I live in LA. Everybody's a coach.
Everybody's a coach.
Okay. You're a coach or what? Everybody's. But to me, it's like, what do you need? I have friends of mine who want to do better physically.
Yes.
So, all right, great. We'll join the gym. We'll go. I'm like, I'm going to the gym. Yeah, I have something. No. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I'm picking
Yeah.
you up and we're
We're
going to the
meeting.
gym.
Ready
We're
to go.
going. We're going.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And this is what's missing. So I think all
Amen.
this woo-woo, we're talking. No, like action. You hold people accountable to action. And then, it's like, training. I hate to use analogies of training a dog and humans, but you train
Yeah.
a dog.
Action.
If they have an accident, I'm not punishing their accident. I'm rewarding their good behavior. So it creates these new neuron connections to, I want to feel that. So I want to do more of that because that makes me feel good. So when people leave and they do their retreat, and even if they do their journey for a year or 18 months, when they go home, what should they be doing, like, to make sure that they are in connection still and not back in the rat race or hamster wheel
Default,
of life
yeah.
that
We
they're
call
in?
the default world, right?
Default world. There you go. Thank you.
Go back to the default world. Yeah, and what's magical about the peak experience is it does open your mind, and what plant medicine does on a neurobiological level is it quiets the default mode network, which is the part of the brain that's the pattern-based part of the brain that's doing the same thing the same way every day. And it quiets that part and it expands your creative parts of the brain, and it connects them with new neural pathways, and then takes the serotonin in these sort of, I call them like detours. It takes detours in your brain. So you have the perspective of, oh, I could do that differently. But then you've got to actually do it differently. That's the thing. In order to ground it into your body, you've got to do it differently. So what we recommend is, and by the way, our method is built in with integration. So we have a 3-part method: preparation, experience, integration, period. It's super simple, but it works. And the integration piece, we recommend that you continue with microdosing, because what that's going to do is it's going to give you a little window back into the experience that you had before, and it's going to remind you of that feeling of the experience, right? So what we want to do is create a window that you can continue to see and feel what you felt before in your actual experience with the medicine, and you can take that on a daily basis into your life. So microdosing is one way. We also recommend a daily practice of some sort. And when I say daily practice, I am not so militant that I say that you need to do it on the dot at 7 a.m. 7 days a week. No. This is a practice of something that you want to do, that you choose to do because it feels good in your body, 3 to 5 to 6 days a week, however often you feel comfortable. Everyone's a little different. But we often recommend that include several different elements. One, breath work is a really good thing because the breath and the body are deeply connected. Whatever your version of breath work is, some people like upregulation, some people like downregulation, totally up to you. We also like an element of prayer or intention or mantra, something that you are saying and you are using your voice. It could even be oming, something where you use that voice and you're really starting to understand what is the frequency of what I want to create and how do I speak it into the world. And then there is often an element of meditation. For me, during COVID, for example, I went deeply inward and I did 42 minutes of meditation every single day, like clockwork. I was dedicated and focused to that. It doesn't have to be 42 minutes, but take some time to contemplate life inwardly and to spend time with your feelings and your thoughts. And that doesn't have to be just the traditional TCM, TM, like 20-minute
Transcendental
practices,
meditation. Yeah.
transcendental meditation. It can be all sorts of different ways. You could do a walking meditation, but those are the elements that I usually like to add into a daily practice. And then come to our integration circles. Show up in the community and attend more of our events as well, because we also have virtual master classes that we hold every month that right now are completely free and offered from our abundance, so that people can be gifted these opportunities to learn more and to experience new modalities that might spark something in you and might be very curious to your evolution.
Uh, so great advice. I'm so glad you said those three things. Absolutely
Yeah.
key. Uh,
Yeah.
if I may add one fourth
Yes.
element, and you
Yes.
tell me, exercise,
I
physical.
was just going to say movement
Okay.
and I missed it.
Movement.
Say it. Yeah. Say more.
Yes,
Why do you think?
that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the fourth element that is so important, because I'm in my close to my mid 50s right now, and I can tell you that physical activity is a game changer. As you're starting to get older, I don't think people realize that men also have menopause, which is
Yeah,
called andropause.
menopause. I like that.
So
Yes.
we need to make sure that, we talk about longevity and all that stuff, but it's about being the best versions of ourselves. So mind, body, as you said in the beginning, connect all those things together, and
Yeah.
you'll have a much healthier way of life. And while you're filling your cup, you can give that abundance to everybody around you. But if it's not
That's
there.
right.
If it's not there, you got nothing to give, and you're just draining yourself. So,
That's right.
one,
Amen to that, Len. And one of the challenges with this accountability piece is right now, I just learned a new term, which I'm surprised it took me this long to learn. SBNR, spiritual but not religious. I don't know if you've heard that one, but makes sense. We've got a big community now that is spiritual but not religious.
yeah,
And we are losing, in many ways, we're losing the faith that we grew up in, many of us. And so we are stepping away from these structures that held us accountable, that were like, oh, you're going to come to church on Sunday, and then you're going to come to church on Wednesday, and you're going to pray in this particular way. We don't have a lot of those anymore, and we're dissolving them, and they're sort of, going away with the disillusionment around some of those systems, which leaves people floating in this space of like, well, what do I do? And we have to design our own sovereign rituals and our own ways of being spiritual. And that will allow us to then design new systems that work for us and get out of the old. But in this in between, it's a little bit wobbly.
yeah, I'm absolutely agree with you, Susanna. I kind of refer to it as the hypocrisy of dogma.
Mhm.
As you start seeing people who you hold to a different standard, who are supposed to be the vessel for source to flow through, and you
Mhm.
see that they're not perfect, they're flawed, they start making mistakes, they create hypocrisy, you start losing faith. But your faith, loss of faith, is in the dogma, in the person who's the vessel, not the source that's providing that. So,
That's
you know,
right.
take another angle. That's the whole
Yeah.
thing about spiritual, religious. I don't know the difference, but it's not about the person who's reading the message for me. So I never kind of
Well,
equated
it's
that.
a lot right now. There's a lot of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? We're like, I don't want any of it. And you're like, okay, yes. And what ultimately happens, and I did this. I did this when I was in war. I thought, well, if God is going to let this happen and the version of God that I was taught allows this to go on, maybe I don't want to believe in God. And I went for a period of time going, I'm just not going to believe in that. I'm going to be agnostic. I have no idea. And living in the state of agnosticism was dark. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't like this. I actually don't like to not believe in something. And that's what then authentically kind of drove me back to realize I had thrown away the baby with the bathwater. And I was like, oh shit, like, gotta go get the baby.
If somebody's listening to this and they're going through burnout, disillusionment, grief, darkness, whatever that is,
Mm,
you have the option to have, whoever's listening to this, to have something you can say human to human, what would you share with people? I know I'm putting you on the spot with like a major here it is. You can go, but I think you can I think there's something there that you can tune into to let people know that there's light.
Oh, there is. There really is. The the little bit of guidance that I offer is to just get really quiet in some moment, ideally in a place of beauty, like around a sunset or something that feels really authentic, and then listen to that very, very small voice that's somewhere in the back, and go back and back and back and back and find that voice and trust that voice. The quieter you get, the softer you get, the more connected to yourself you get, the less afraid you get to listen to that voice. Trust it. That is your intuition. And it knows it's your highest self. It's always in your highest service, no matter what it's saying. And you can trust it.
There, I'm going to shift focus to some of the questions that are more music related that I ask all my guests.
Yeah.
So we'll put on a different hat, but beautifully said. I'm grateful that you were able to share that download with people. So, all right. So do you remember, and if so, what was the very first concert that you attended?
Oh man. Um, this is a great question. So the first big concert I experienced was Backstreet Boys.
All right.
Yes. And it was their Black and Blue tour. And I cannot tell you how excited I was to go to that. I would think I was in middle school. I was somewhat older, and it was like absolutely epic and blew my mind. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
What was the
Yeah.
last concert that you attended?
Mm. In my heart, I attended a Beyonce concert, but I actually didn't. I just imagined myself there. I've always wanted to go to one of her concerts. Um, oh man, I'm like thinking way back. It may have been. I'll say the one that comes to mind.
Mhm.
Um, one of the Aftershock festivals,
Okay.
which I don't know if you've been to those, but they're in Sacramento and they are really epic. They are a mix of all the, most awesome rock bands you can possibly imagine. So those are by far the most memorable ones that I've been to in the past couple years. Yeah.
All right, one more music question. For the next year, you could only listen to 5 albums, but you don't have to remember the name of the album. It could be
Okay.
Backstreet Boys or
Yep.
whatever, Guns N' Roses,
Like
whatever.
the artist. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What will be those 5?
Ooh, okay. One, Bob Marley, greatest hits. Gotta have it. Um, Two, I'm starting to listen to like really high vibe music because a lot of music is tuned to 440 hertz, which is like sad. And so there's a artist named Abel Hart who does like really awesome high vibe music, and it's hip hop. So his like most recent album, um, mm, I think Mozart. They're one of the albums with like the water songs on it. Yeah, those would be amazing. And then let's see, that's three. Okay. What else? Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson, like classic greatest hits of Jack Johnson. I can just listen to those all the time. And then, man, I'm like something dancey, like it's like Ludacris comes to mind.
It was good. You can never go wrong with
Oh,
Luke.
you never go wrong with Ludacris. I mean, I grew up in Atlanta, so hip hop all day long and something hip hoppy. I would have to have a little bit of like real dancey music.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, you have so many options. Outcast, you have the
Yes.
Hoodie Mob,
Yeah.
all those.
Yeah, like I want like the greatest hits of
Yeah,
like 2005 to 2010, like those greatest hits. Yeah, with some Nelly, a little bit of Luda,
there you go.
all that goodness.
All right. Final question for you. Please describe what your room looked like growing up.
Oh, wow. Um, the for I moved rooms, but the one that I really loved that was when I was younger was we were in a log cabin on the farm, and so we had the full logs with even like bark and stuff on them was kind of cool. And my room, you walked in and it had a window on one side overlooking our front area, like front sort of meadow. And then I had this big, beautiful white, not an armoire, but sort of like a dresser that had a bunch of shelves on it. And it had vines painted all over it. And I remember thinking how feminine it was. And it was always like weird to me that I would have something so girly because I tended to be more of a tomboy. And then I had a lovely little white metal daybed, which I think a lot of girls my age had the exact same one with little like metal flowers kind of on it, and a bajillion stuffed animals who were all my best friends. And the cool thing about that room was my parents built in a trap door into the closet. So I could go into my closet and climb through the trap door and it would take me into my parents' room. So I had like a little direct way. And I remember thinking like, oh, if anybody ever, breaks into the house, I'm gonna like go hide in the closet and I have a secret way, secret entrance.
Super
Yeah.
cool. Was there anything on the walls, like any artwork and posters, anything that was memorable?
As I got older, I definitely had posters and things. I think on that wall, there were a couple of handmade pieces, like somebody had done a needlepoint
Okay.
for me, right? So we had some framed like needlepoint that had like my name on it and things like that. Um, And then I had, oh, yes. Oh, thank you for reminding me. Huh, this is interesting. So, our logo at Metamorphosis is a butterfly, and I had a glass case that had bugs and a butterfly in it. So now that I'm thinking about it, I had some like sort of preserved insects
Very cool.
in a glass case, yeah, on the wall.
Uh, Zan, where can people engage with you? Where can they get more information about Metamorphosis or anything else you want to share? People can get.
They could come to metamorphosis.ventures. That's where they're going to find our website and all of our details about MetaFest. And then they can follow me personally. We're still building out our organizational Instagram, but they can follow me at Susanna Roses on Instagram, and I am very active there. So DM me. I love to connect with anyone. And yeah, I mean, it's such a pleasure and an honor to just meet more soul family because I also want to feel less lonely in this world.
For sure. And for my audience, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. Uh, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, follow, all those things. I'm just reminding people, and I know you guys are doing this, but I was asked to keep reminding, so I do. And thank you for buying my book, Making Cannabis Personal, on Amazon or wherever you get books. Um, I just want to say it's such a pleasure. I think you're doing an amazing service. I really, your energy is fantastic. And I really want people to connect because I don't know what's happening right now in the world, but there's a shift. And we need to all remember that even if we need help, even if you're not alone, it's okay to do whatever it is, plant medicine, whatever you have to do, just do. Stay here and do the work because there is light on the other side of darkness. So
Yes, there
thank you.
is. Amen. 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 Stay here. Be with us. We will help you. We will guide you. We are on your team so much.
Thanks so much. Hey, everyone. So does anybody know what greening out means? I've been the recipient of so many calls over the years of people greening out. That means they took too much THC and had an adverse reaction. So I always recommend other things, but nothing really concrete. Now I can. There's a solution. It is called Antidose. Antidose.com is quick, it's rapid, it works immediately, safe, and effective. So I love my props. If you are toasty or you are burnt, that's the difference. Now, I also love the 1 gummy, 2 gummy, 3 gummy floor. So just be aware, very narrow therapeutic window. You know exactly what you can take now if you've taken too much. Once again, it's Antidose at antidose.com. Get yours today. Hey everyone, thank you for watching and listening. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, share this episode, and hit that bell. Like, comment. I so appreciate that. And check me out on social under Len May or Len May DNA. Find out more on LinkedIn or lenmaycoaching.com. And remember, everything is personal.